I figured out that I'm an idiot. You wanna know how? I'm an idiot. Okay. In my pocket, I have these little adapters that I wanted to plug into my DVD, see if it would let me. I didn't realize that I could plug the camera in directly into it. I thought, let's get another USB port because there was an issue with the USB resources. Turns out it's an output, not an input. So these are just useless little nipple clamps at this point. I don't even know why. This was $5. Like, you can plug these into a phone that uses non-USB-C and convert it to USB. Anything that's a micro USB. $5. Wanted to see if it would work. They don't work, but guess what? Look. So I did it. I fucking fixed it. I unplugged the peripherals to that switch over into the other USB hub, which is the mouse and keyboard. And it's unplugged from the DVD extension. That's all it was. It's literally all it was. I know it's a mess right here. This is not what I want it to look like. Turns out, also needed to make all the cameras the same camera. Video camera capture device 3 on every single one. Because when we switch, one will freeze. Now I can switch to the PC also, and it doesn't time out the camera. So watch. Still works. Still working. Both cameras. I was thinking, better safe than sorry at least, right? Better to have, things I need than to be like, I don't have it. Oh no, what do I do? So, also the desk is out at an angle. I gotta put it back. What a waste of my, $5. Maybe not. You know what I'm thinking? This is gonna be a day. There's gonna be a day I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I have 2 of them. And there's gonna be a situation where we need to convert. And I'm gonna be like, I did it! I invested in these bullshit little fucking adapters. And nobody's gonna tell me otherwise. Why I was an idiot now. Haha. Haha. Right. They're definitely gonna tell me. I'm debating whether I should play something like briefly or draw. Kind of leaning towards the art thing since we got this working. Like, I just cleaned this up. I just want to tell you guys how stupid I am first. First and foremost, get it out of the way. How much of an idiot I am. Just the usual update on those types of things. Very important. Very informative stuff. You see how messy this is? You see how disorganized this is? Also, we got a big update on the art stuff. That's cool. Do you see that background? You see that? It's cool as heck. You see that little light just like moving around? That's from the camera. Bro. The best thing. I wonder if I can switch this over to. Why is it on 50 hertz mode? That's weird. Highest FPS. I have it on highest FPS, but it's on 50 hertz mode. You see how smooth that looks? Do I want it on 50 hertz mode? Maybe I was doing that to help the resources. I think my dumbass brain was thinking, this will help. Let me go back to 50 real quick, see how it feels. See how the freaking feels are. See if it does anything different. See, it just looks a bit choppier. I'm doing strokes. I don't know. I think I want to put it on 60. Big update though. Regarding art. I am currently managing / directing a story with somebody, but their idea, you know, it's not entirely original, but it's now becoming an original idea. We're taking from an already established concept of like, what if, like, if something really crazy happened and we told a different alternative events of, you know, a mythological character or a mythological format of the character that did exist in real life, which we're talking about King Arthur. Okay, King Arthur, instead of being a normal king who's a good guy, is a bad guy. That's the main concept there. I cannot breathe on my fucking nose. And I can't get it out either. I'm trying. I might just want to wash some freaking water through my nose, but I don't want to do that at the same time. It's going to feel funny. I might do that in the shower. Just like snort some water. It's just this weird pressure. It won't stop. So yeah. Going back to what we're doing. Basically, King Arthur has magical abilities instead of the other way around. There is no Merlin in this one. Merlin never existed. It's very, very specific. Merlin never existed. There's a few other things. Like, actually, Merlin, no. He did exist, but he doesn't exist around Arthur. He never interacts with him. He dies, like, very early on in a different time. And then Arthur, you know, grows up without this, you know, wizard. And he doesn't have guidance in his life, which is an important aspect to what Merlin really was a guy. He was a teacher. He was a philosopher in some ways. So it wasn't just, you know, there's a little bit more grounding in the fact that his father also wasn't around. He had to grow up and be a king at an early age. So Uhtred dies also early on. But instead of magic people, it's non-magic folk that did it. It's the other way around. These people that follow, you know, basically a behavioral structure or belief system of evil hate magic, hate the structure of how that works. And the way magic works in our universe is different. It's not just some guy just uses a spell or has a wand. It's actually a completely different system, which is really cool. It's called the Soulbound system. The Soulbound system, however that sounds familiar to something you might know, is basically somebody pushes their ability through negative reinforcement. Basically, the suffering or the difficulty of the situation of their physical body or emotions tied to the situation pushes their abilities further and further, developing them. Hence, intense ass fucking training. Like 40 days without eating and like doing crazy fucking things. Like intense, stupid, fucking crazy shit to develop and push their abilities to their most extreme, most defined state so they have full control of it. Fully realized. It's like, it's based on, you know, real old beliefs. So it's tying into that. In Soulbound universe, things are much more realistic, grittier, darker, and also we have some humor and some really interesting characters. Our main focus for our characters are relation. So anything that where they are very connected to the world. So we have, which is two important characters right now. One, who's next to hold Excalibur? We got that guy. He's a young, you know, not seemingly noble character who is noble, who has pretty much a very rocky upbringing. You know, he was with his parents for a little while, and then they, you know, wasted all their money because they had issues with money. Got killed. He got raised later on around like 10 or 11 years old by these creatures that are, you know, in some sense human, but they're not fully human. They are they're combinations of other things genetically, and this is an actual hard set fact about the way the universe works. Another fact about these creatures is they're not actually from this era. They're from the future, from a different timeline, different, and they have now existed in the medieval era, which is this dimension, magical world, because of how the soul-bound energy works, combined with the fact that these creatures are hybrid, half animal, half human creatures. So you get this illusion of how the world seems, like it's this bright and magical place, but it's not. It's really not. This is an entire construct from a lot of mistakes and events that created the way this is. And what's even more insane is like the way, the reason there everything has to be this way, like the soul-bound energy itself, or whatever you call it, within each being, every single one has either like almost no connection to it. It's like the force kind of, or full connection to it. It's because of nature. When instead of becoming out of touch with it, it brought people's energies up, bringing them closer to it. So it's like, imagine a world where everybody's not out of touch and everything is just pushed because of either extreme circumstances like war, starvation, natural disasters. Things really pushed their evolution. So this is based on like a realistic approach, is what I'm saying. It pushed their evolution of whatever's in them to have some form of ability to manipulate things that are beyond our comprehension, that are like, you know, the sixth sense kind of shit. But amp it up to 11 or on testosterone and give it to a bunch of people. They can see visions of the future. They can levitate things. They can, you know, read minds. They can, you know, manipulate elements. It's different kinds of things. And each person has, it's a very complex process of what made them able to do that. It's not predictable. You can't say, oh, because my dad did this ability, I got this. No, the soulbound thing is actually completely random. That's what's crazy about it. It's like, imagine we have a universe of mutants, right? But they're not mutants like you'd think, right? So there's a complex fine line here between fantasy and science that we're playing with. Seriously. And yet we're all kind of curious how this would look and feel versus a usual fantasy story. You know, your run of the mill, oh, you know, I believe and fight the dragon, save the kingdom. Kingdom's gone. Your expectations are going to be completely thrown off. I know you're probably interested in this. Like, this is, I can just keep talking and you just be like, oh my god, I need to read this shit. Right? Okay, so Camelot is not intact. The knights, some of them are dead. Some of them are, they're very broken and spread apart now. They're old. It's been some time. Arthur's gone. That's the fun part about the story. See, this is for spoilers. It's like, I'm just gonna talk about the whole fucking concept. Arthur's gone. We don't know where he went. There's illuminations of what happened. People saw him during a war with the hybrids, the creatures that came from the future, but they don't know really where they came from. What he believed, or what they believed, is these things came from another world to invade and take over, right? But now, since that war's over, and non-magic folk joined in, so the ones who follow the darker path, because they have no abilities themselves, had to seek power other ways using dark practices. There's a spectrum of non-magic folk. There's people who just work and they don't do anything, and then there's people who desire and are jealous and want to take from what they do not have, which is robbing of life. And they they do some messed up shit to get it. And they had play a big role in how this universe works. But they don't know where these things came from, these hybrids. All they see is invasion. It stirs everything up. It starts such a ripple, but it severely impacts and changes the way the society looks and feels completely, literally like 50 years later. So yeah, these guys are like 60 or 70. They're old. I'm not gonna make them die at like 50 or at 40. I'm gonna let them get real old. It'll be fine. I don't care. This doesn't have to be super accurate. But it's reshaped how they speak. So now, since these things are from the future, their dialogue and how other people speak is not the same as, you know, medieval. It is more modern speech, the naming of people, more modern sounding names, shorter sounds, easier to say because they're half animal, half human. So they're more like pronunciation with vowels. They use more vowels, you know? So that's going to be a big deal in how they speak or use names. But like, it's also really important to say, like, we have a bad guy. The bad guy is a Lich King. He's like a necromancer. And what he does is, okay, so main idea. We're just got all these like demons and undead things showing up. We don't have a real reason or source. It's just fucked up things are happening left and right. Every, you know, few distant towns out in the middle of nowhere, you know, they're seeing some beings or shadow figures or whatever showing up and killing people and things like that. It's kind of crazy. There's another scene with the main character where he interacts with surprisingly the Grim Reaper, and that's going to be interesting. I'm not going to completely talk about that. So that kind of alludes to a lot of stuff. And then we also have mysteriously a character who has both light and dark magic, which is rare. Almost nobody is able to use their soulbound energy to go to a wider spectrum, like have dual power like yin yang. And she has something going on that she doesn't understand. Like, she interacts with the main character and she's just very mysterious and wise. She's just, because of what she has to bear, her burden, she's like, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? I do not know. I feel like I'm pulled one direction or the other. It's complicated. Another thing about some of the knights, Galahad, he's still alive, but he's living in the woods alone. And there's actually a secret reason why he's guarding the sword. He has it, and he's not telling anybody what it is. And he's secretly trying to find someone noble who can take it on because he knows he doesn't have much time left. But here's the other important part. He has a dog, like a wolf. It's like a dog, but like a wolf. And we're giving him a really modern sounding name because why not? Like, that's what we're going with, I guess. But you kind of feel the aesthetic here. You know what I mean? It's got a wolf, and then Galahad does die. We have to make sure this dog's taken care of. Like, there's little things like that I want to have, like, you know, trust, bonding, building of a interaction between a human and an animal on a deep level. People working through trauma, working through issues that they haven't been able to together. There's a few other interesting things. One hybrid character is very, very important to Nero, which is our main character. His name is Tico. He's kind of like a fox, but he's like not a fox. You know what I mean? Like a very tall, standing, half human, half fox-like character. Tico is fast, slender, very clever. And then we have this other mysterious character that appears a few comics ahead. Like, it doesn't appear right away for our team, but some of this stuff's so radical and this other character, I think we're gonna go with his name being Nova. Nova is a machine. He's completely non-magic. He's not human. And he's nothing anyone's seen before. He's one of his kind, only one. Nobody knows where he's from. No one knows anything about him, but he's sticking with our group. But he knows about some big connections of who the Leech King is, where the demons are coming from, and it actually opens up to a much bigger problem later on, because the secret about this machine guy is he knows about different dimensions, he knows about different beings, he knows about, where you go when you die, stuff like that nobody knows about. Or like, what do you mean? He's just kind of a crazy knowledgeable dude, but in a way he's important for us to learn about the world. So yeah, we have Galahad dies. We got Max, the wolf, Nova, the robot, and we got Ray, which is she's got dual powers. I call her half and half girl. And then we got Nero. So there we go. These are not names or characters you would ever think would exist or interact in a medieval sci-fi. Very subtly sci-fi. It's like gonna slowly kind of trickle in. Yeah, these characters, they're gonna really push themselves, and I got a really strong vision for it. There are dragons, so if you have a question, like there's dragons. There's also like I'm thinking about adding like these elders that like know, like they talk to Nero. I'm thinking about adding stuff like that. It's gonna be a very nuanced kind of story. So not a lot of this is gonna be like so action packed all the time, but when stuff happens, it's very important and very meaningful and focused on like the details of it being very realistic. So if anything happens to the person, it's like I'm watching somebody, I'm watching a movie. If this event happening, like a recreation of this timeline, and this is big, basically starting a timeline or universe that we're going to eventually like build a bigger and bigger. Starting here at the base with just some cool aesthetics, cool concepts that later get explained throughout these other stories that trickle back down at the beginning. Like you won't understand any of it. There's a few other things like Excalibur is not what you think it is. There's a lot more to the sword than what at least a normal storyteller would do, than what we're gonna do with it. There's another sword I'm gonna add, which is basically the ultimate sword, and this is a different story that takes place even before where we're starting. That does trickle through. So there's an even earlier origin of it's the sword, and the way the sword works is the wielder has to be in touch completely with nature, like entirely. They have to not bend or try to manipulate it. They cannot change. And the funny thing about it's not the funny thing. Anytime anyone sees this thing, they just are afraid. They don't know why, but they just on a deep primal level know this weapon. I'm talking about multiple lifetimes or whatever their ancestors. They just know this thing. It's like knowing a spider. It's like it's in you. It's inside of your existence to accept and abide by this weapon, because it is the sword of like everything. It's like all it. It's like, okay, how do I explain this? It can literally, if you get or even killed by this thing, you don't exist anymore. It rips you from all of time. It rips you out. Like this thing chooses whether you are worthy or whether you even matter, and it confronts your deepest insecurities and issues. And the person who holds this thing has already worked on every aspect So it's really almost impossible to hold this thing. That's what I'm saying. Just one. The sword. Most powerful weapon. Because it's confrontational. It's ready to tear you down. But it's also there to teach you and help you in a way. Like weirdly. So it's like it has an actual like intention. Like this sword has like an actual. And what's funny is it does change throughout time. There's a future version of it. Someone actually brought back the same exact sword back in time. We don't know how, we don't know when, we don't know what that's connected to. And then someone has the current version in our story. That's a concept I'm going to add. How do you interact with the same thing? And it's almost like having two of the same people arguing with each other. It's not even about the fight anymore. It's not even about holding it. You're not worthy if you even bring it against itself. Does it merge? Those real questions. Does it merge? Does it interact and try to outbest its own knowledge based off of its further experience versus its previous? Because this thing has an actual like soul, hence soul bound. Some things can have souls bound to them. This thing does. So that's really interesting. And there's going to be a point. This is like super big spoiler shit. That the sword is darker than the current. Like its experience in it, there's a slight jaded side. It's like a hair, like such a small difference in the future version than the past. Oh no, sorry, this is my hand. Future version in the past version. Who wins? That's the fucking question. But it's not about the two swords. See, I've just brought you all over to a whole different concept and story. But I could go back over to these other characters and make them super cool and interesting by talking about them. I'm just telling you about how this story and universe is going to feel. It's going to encapsulate you. It's going to draw you in. It's going to bring you to really deep emotional, almost profound, thought processes. But the core point is like you need to figure out who you are. That's like the core of it all. But through pain, through embracing pain, you are better, you are refined, and just loving people despite all of it. Those are the three things right there. Figure out who you are, work through the pain, and love people. So these characters, each of these characters in their own way, in their own grounded experience, are going to drive themselves to be more like this. I don't know how long we're going to focus on just a timeline of like basically aftermath King Arthur, where everything's reshaped and no one's fighting anymore. They're not like, oh, like this is totally different. There's warmongers, there's people who are helping out, building farms, building like, because there was so much killing. So much was destroyed. Like everywhere because of the fighting. Because there's people just like picking up arms like, why are we killing the hybrids? Like they're going to fight for the hybrids. And so many people kept going back and forth, turning on each other, just destroying everything, that there's only a few left. There's only a few towns, some of the knights are still around, and now it's scarred, but the land's rehealing emotionally and physically. They're building new towns, new houses. It's taking time because now every able-bodied person that can help is super valuable right now. And they don't have any like aid from further out kingdoms. And currently there's no proper kings. Like in the eyes of, I'd say, the universe, or like what is honorable, what is good, this is the era where there are no kings, and we desperately need one that is like a true king. And the only one that was for a time was Arthur in this story, in this universe. And now that's kind of the whole point. Who's the next guy? Who's going to lead? Who's capable? And we don't know that. You know? That's like kind of the big question. But also Lich King. We got to do something about this guy. Like, he's summoning bad stuff. You know? And we do find out who he really is. And we find out a lot more about Rey and her abilities and stuff, which is going to be really cool. And also who the big baddie is, like who's really in charge, where it's everything's revealed. You'd be like that's important. So here's what I'm saying, and I'm gonna share this to my friend so he knows, like, outline what I'm describing, what the world's gonna look like, because I described it all to him, and it's gonna work. It's just you already can tell it's just a great idea. It just works as a movie or a video game or whatever it wants to be. We're gonna do a comic book because it's easier to do, but I don't got a team to do a video game. I don't got a team to do a movie, so might as well just start with just writing it, drawing the characters, and sending it off. You know. So that's the thing I'm gonna do. I think actually I'm not gonna game. I think I just want to chill. But it was good to just get my thoughts out and just put something out there. Thanks for watching, I guess. See ya.